be with you today. Been looking forward to this for some time. And thank you for the invitation, Pastor Paul. We had a wonderful time together in our home. We could be associate pastors for a long time. Pastor Barbara, you talked to you on the phone a few times. It's so good to be with you today, all of you. So today we're going to Germany. And so we need to learn at least one German word. Hey, a couple. Guten Morgen.
Guten Morgen.
A little Hoosier accent, but you know. The land of Beethoven, of the Black Forest, chocolate cake, the Autobahn, and 2 world wars in 21 years. I went through the second one from A to Z and beyond that. And the scripture I have for you today, it is good for me that I have been afflicted. It's good to be afflicted, that I might learn your statutes. If I had to live life again, I would choose the same pathway of affliction again. I was born in the fires of affliction, raised in the fires of affliction, molded into that to become the man God wants me to be. Don't spoil your children. Don't let them be the center of the universe. There is no commandment that says, parents, obey your children. But children, obey your parents. They learn to obey you, they learn to obey God. Without obedience to God, we're not going anywhere. So I'd like to introduce my wife to you. When I was in my second year of college, Jesus spoke to me and he said, don't date. There were 15,000 girls, don't date. He didn't want me to touch any woman but the one that belonged to me. So then he said, I will show you the one that's for you. A year later, in the Colorado Rocky Mountains at 7,000 feet above sea level, in the trees, on the gravel road, comes this little curly hair, black hair student nurse out of Chicago, crossing my path. And Jesus said, this is the one. That was 57 years ago. So give her a hand. I never had to raise my voice to her. She never raised her voice to me in 57 years. It's been a wonderful relationship. So the two of us together, we raised 4 children on 1 hour of television a week. That's not radical. Our children raised their children on 0 TV a week. So, anyhow, instead of them letting the things of the world come into their minds, are you following me? All the attitudes, the values of the world coming into the mind, feeding the inner man. There's an outer man, and there's an inner man. No wonder you could bring the church Sunday after Sunday for so many years. Eventually, all the stuff that you allow to get into their minds, the values of the world, the thoughts of the world, eventually they'll take over and they'll cause them to make decisions other than what God wants them to make, and you lose them. So we raised our children on 1 hour TV a week, and our favorite movie was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And in this movie you see hundreds of English children being taken captive in the Bulgarian castle. And at the end, this old man is dancing around, singing, out of the ashes shall rise the roses of success. And I'm the old man dancing around. I've seen lots of ashes. I know what it's like to be poor. I didn't get my first pair of new shoes till I was 19 years of age. I know what it's like to be hated and rejected. Somebody spit on my shoes at 9 years of age. But early in my life, I learned not to let somebody else's resentment to become my resentment. Somebody else's anger to become my anger. I would not allow negatives to get into my heart by the grace of God. So, I want to take you to the Holocaust period now. Most people don't know there were actually 4 Holocausts, not 1. Most of them think there's only the Jewish Holocaust. There were actually 4 Holocausts in Germany. First of all, as you know, the Jewish Holocaust. In this Holocaust, 6 million Jews were killed by gas chambers or by the execution squads as the German army moved towards Moscow. Special troops, Einsatztruppen, followed, and they would round up the Jews, have to stand before ditches, and mow them down with machine guns. Then you had the gas vans that picked up Jews, and then as the truck went out to the fields to bury them, the exhaust gas was let into the cabin, and that's the way they died. 6 million. Secondly, you had the non-Jewish Holocaust, in which 5 million non-Jews died in concentration camps. There's no memorial for them, as if they were nothing. And they were Poles, they were pastors, they were priests, homosexuals, Jehovah's Witnesses, they were political dissenters, people who were mentally retarded, physically unfit, and so down the line. 5 million of them. Then you had the starvation Holocaust. 18 million people died of starvation, 2 in my own immediate family. Then you had the bombing Holocaust, in which 600,000 people were killed by British and American bombs. When you see war movies, you see cities destroyed. You know, that's all you see, cities destroyed. I, as a civilian, tell you, you don't destroy cities. When you bomb cities, you destroy children and their mothers and their grandparents. The average family in Germany during the war had 4 children. And so all these 600,000 were mostly children and mothers and grandparents. So now, getting back to Germany, how it all started. In 1933, there was an election, and the Germans had 3 choices. Either continue with the Democrats, the Democratic Party, which was unable to pull Germany out of its troubles. People ate out of garbage cans in 1933, 25% unemployment. The second choice was the Communists. And the third choice was the Nationalsozialistische Partei. Say it after me. And it's a myth to say that the Germans voted for Adolf Hitler. Only about 38% of Germans voted for Adolf Hitler. But he got more votes than the other 2 parties. But he bullied himself into the position of dictatorship. And early on, when he was running to be the chancellor, he sped out his anti-Semitic rhetoric over radio and beer halls throughout the whole country. It was in this environment my mother, of Jewish descent, had her first date with a young man called Rudy. And Rudy was the son of a wealthy industrialist. And so they dated on, and finally, Rudy was ready to say the big words. And just then his father called him and he said, son, you can marry anybody you want to marry, but don't you marry a Jew that's bad for the business. He broke off the relationship. My mother was getting ready to jump off the bridge into a river. But something kept her from it. And that's one reason why I'm here today. A few months later, she met another young man by the name of Alfred. Blonde, blue-eyed, tall, handsome guy, pure German, everything the SS wanted for that picture. As an SS man. And so she had a few dates, and then she said, I better let him know before we go any further what my heritage is all about, my Jewish heritage. And so very slowly, cautiously, nervously, she gave him a Jewish heritage, step by step. When she was done, he put his arms around her and said, I always wanted to marry a Jew. There, my father, Alfred, threw his future away. So then we go on and they dated for a while before they could afford to get married. Then came 1935. And the Nazis passed the Nuremberg laws by which all Germans were classified into 3 categories. We were racially classified. See how horrible. We do the same thing in America. Your census is coming up. We have Caucasians, we have Native Indians, we have African Americans, and we have, what else do we have? A few more categories. So the thing is, in Germany, it was all about you either were a Jew or not a Jew. It's all about the Jewish blood. And so there were, first of all, the Aryans. They're the pure Germans, like my dad. Then you had the Jews, like my grandfather, full-blooded Jew. And then you had in between the mongrels, the mixed race. And zweite, erste, zweite Grad Mongol. So so we had the classification in 1935. I was born 1936, years later, and I was the first person in our family who had the racial identification stamped on his birth card. So my mother saw this and she found out, okay, I'm a second-degree Mongol, classified. I try to be the best Mongol for Jesus. And she had this birth card. She was distraught, totally discouraged, went home. She was not a person given to religious expressions at all. She never talked about religion. But she happened to open the Bible. And it fell open to Psalm 91, verse 11. I will give his angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. That was, unbeknownst to her, a prophecy over my life, that I would be indestructible. That's one reason why I'm here. That is the reason why I'm still here. And so that was the prophecy over my life. Then after that, my dad was called in. 3 times he was called in by the Nazis. And they tried to force him, pressure him to divorce his Jewish family. First time, second time, third time. During this time now, then Hitler developed anti-Semitic policies. After a short time, all the Jewish doctors were dismissed from hospitals, and there were signs showing up like this in stores. Jews don't go here, it's a Jewish store. Every Jewish store that was owned by a man had to have the name Isaac behind him. Like J.C. Penney, Isaac, or Wendy's restaurant would have the Wendy, Sarah. So that people know these are Jewish stores, don't go there, don't shop there. So a boycott over all the villages to drive the Jews out of Germany. Jewish musicians and artists were not allowed anywhere, and they went on and on. Children, Jewish children soon could not go to university and then not to school at all, and they were driven into ghettos. So during this time, my Jewish grandfather, all of a sudden, he found out he lost all his friends he used to have. He was a German. All of a sudden, he was a Jew. Everybody looked at him as a Jew. And he took a little briefcase, asked for a 3-day visa to go to England, and he never came back. Shortly after that, my Aunt Hilda was a nurse, and they demanded that all nurses make a statement, sign a paper that they are Aryans. She said, I'm not an Aryan, I'm a Jew, I'm proud of it. No, sign you're an Aryan, we'll cover you. And she said, no, I'm proud to be a Jew, and she was dismissed from the hospital. Shortly after that, she went to England. Now, then we began to experience the bombings. I survived 1,000 bombing raids in Hamburg. We lived on the 5th floor of an apartment complex, and every night, 2 or 3 times a night, we went from the 5th floor in total darkness, except for a few flashlights, down to the bunker, night after night after night, and listened to the explosions nearby 1,000 times. I was even bombed many years after the war was over. I was in Milwaukee, my first year in college. I was 19 years of age now. I was still being bombed in my dreams. Every night I would dream a bomb would come through the roof of the building and through all the floors, and would hit me on the bridge of my nose in the bunker, and I would wake up in cold sweat. So one day I had the bright idea, I have Jesus now. I'm going to ask Jesus to stop the bombings. And he did. And haven't been bombed since. That's the second miracle in my Christian life. We have taken the miraculous out of Christianity. We have a mighty God. So he had his angels charge for me during the bombs. Shortly after that, the Nazis really put pressure on my dad. So we left Hamburg to go to East Germany. A secret move. And right after that, my apartment complex was bombed, and all the people died in the bombings. On the way out to the eastern Germany, see on the map there, follow the arrows going down to the east. I heard Adolf Hitler speak on the radio the first time. We didn't have to be in those days. I heard him on the radio. He always started out with slow and low, and then he would crank it up and talk faster and faster, got to a frenzy. But he always talked about the 1,000-year Reich, the 1,000-year government. I was 7 years old. Most people have no idea what goes on in a 7-year-old kid. A lot more than you think it does. And so I kept talking about this, and I said to myself, now wait a minute. Why only 1,000 years? There must be some seed of corruption in this government to last only 1,000 years. Why not forever? And inside of me, there was the same thing there was in the heart of Abraham way back. I didn't know anything about the Bible. It says Abraham was looking for a city whose builder and maker is God. Eternity was in my heart from the very beginning, and now it came alive. And then I began to realize Adolf Hitler was telling a lie. What do you mean 1,000 years? We've already been blasted to smithereens by the British, and German soldiers returned from Russia wounded and many dead. So now I began to look for something to hold on to in all of this destruction. And I came to the conclusion that my best friend would be truth. Truth. I want the truth. Nothing but the truth. Because the truth touches everything in the universe. The truth liberates. The truth energizes. The truth gives life. But I didn't know the source of all truth is Jesus Christ, the truth, the source of truth. And I was getting on the way. I began to get focused at 7 years of age. And by the grace of God, I never lost my focus through all those years. I got to East Germany, settled down. My dad got a job. And his job was away from home. He had to rent a condo during the week, come home on Sundays. And his landlady stole his food rations. He got thinner and thinner, got tuberculosis, and died. Just when we needed him the most. Because we had 4 things happening here. Number 1, the Russians were coming our way. Number 2, Jews were being killed in our neighborhood. We didn't know which day they would come up the steps and get us. And number 3, a baby was born. We don't need another baby now. We have 4 children. We didn't need number 5. And the next one was, what was the other one? 4 things happened. Anyhow, so my dad died, didn't have telephones, so the way the hospital communicated with the people, families, when somebody died, they would send a nurse to your home. She was dressed in all black, black cap on, black dress, black shoes. And when she appeared in the door, we knew our daddy was dead. We all screamed. Our protector, our helper, was gone. And so now we had these dilemmas. And the Russians indeed came, surrounded our city. But before that, I forgot to mention, my mother opened the desk drawer of my dad, and she found 2 loaded revolvers. He was going to meet the Nazis at the door. There they are. So now the Russians surrounded us, and what the Russians did in every town, every city, every village was 3 things. First came to a little village called Liebersdorf, and when they took it, the Germans took it back, and this is what happened. All old men had been clubbed to death. All babies had their heads crushed. And all women from 8 to 80 had been tied to wagon wheels or barn doors and abused. That became a standard procedure. Now we have them surrounding our town, except for one opening for a railroad track for a Red Cross train. Horse-drawn carriages were lined up, one after the other. Skinny horses, open wagons, old men, old women, women with children, snowing heavily, waiting for the next day to suffer the humiliation of the Russian army soldiers, the raping, the torture, and everything else. My brother went to the schoolyard and saw 1,000 young German soldiers, many teenagers, stacked up like sardines in their uniforms. No place, no time to bury. An announcement came on the radio, and the mayor said we cannot hold the city anymore except for one day. We have a hospital train for soldiers. We're trying to get out before we surrender the city. And the requirements to get on the train, everybody wants to get out, everybody. Is for people, for families, they have to be at least 3 children, they have to be orphans or half orphans, and there has to be 1 infant. What do you think? My father had to die. The baby had to be born to get us out of the hands of the communists. I still remember my mother stood in the living room, in a lovely living room, and the children gathered around her. She was not used to making decisions. So she said to us children, shall we stay or shall we go? It was with a single voice, we said, let's get out of here. We didn't go to the bank to get money, we didn't fix sandwiches. We just put on our warmest clothing and went out the door. Just it, we were done. Except for Reimar Schultze, you know, he's a little different. I thought I was going to go first class. Went to the bed and got the feather bed, tied it in my back, and I fell over backwards. And we left the feather bed behind for the Russians to rejoice. Walking through the deep snow, all the way to the station, my mother, all she could do was hold the infant. And so I was walking through that deep snow, not realizing the revelation's been given over my life, you know. And he will have his angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. Angels were watching over me. Hallelujah. I didn't know him, but he knew me. He had his eyes on me. And so we got to the train station. There was no benches to sit down. We stood all night in the snow and the cold. In the morning, we were able to end the train. There was blood. All these wounded soldiers, 3 rows of wounded bunk beds, blood all over the floor, soldiers screaming, no medical care. And we were put in there, we were jammed together, body against body. It's supposed to take 2 hours to get us out of there to the city of Gdansk, a seaport. And we were standing like this in the train for 3 days and 3 nights. No heat, no water, no food, no medical help for the wounded to die. Next to me was a soldier who stayed for 2 days before we put him out in the snow. We finally got to Gdansk, and we were in a pocket with our backs against the Baltic Sea. The Russians were on the east of us, the west of us, the south of us. 2 million people jammed in, and this pocket became smaller and smaller. We were being bombed. My brother and I went to the harbor. We saw a ship loading up refugees. And told my mother, and she said, I don't know what to do. She still wasn't used to making decisions. She said to us, children, what shall we do? Shall we get on the ship, or shall we stay? She didn't tell us all she knew. She knew that just a few weeks before, the largest German luxury liner, the Gustav Wilhelm, swimming pool, the whole works, a big luxury liner, had taken on 10,000 refugees and wounded soldiers, and had been blown up by Russian submarines, and sank in a few minutes in the ice-cold waters. Out of the 10,000 people, 9,500 drowned in those cold waters. 6 times as many as the Titanic. All together on the ships trying to get out there, take the refugees out of that area. 22,000 people drowned. So we said, let's get out of here. And so we went to the harbor to get on the ship. He will have his angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. We got to the harbor. It wasn't a matter of money, getting on there. We needed money. The ticket to get on the ship was a baby. We needed the baby to get on there. No men were allowed on the ship. Some of the men dressed like women to get on the ship. When they were caught, they were shot by the SS and their bodies were hung on lampposts in the harbor. Another thing that happened is, wherever you went in Germany in those days, you always had to show your ID. They forgot to ask for the ID, which said, second-degree Mongol. We would never got none. What a mighty God we serve. What a mighty God we serve. The God of the ship was a freighter, steel riveted floor, ice cold, lie down on the floor, body to body, several levels. And again, of course, no supplies. A minesweeper took us out of the harbor, and then we were on our own to miss 60,000 water miles. We had sailors in front of the ship on each side on boards, led down boards with long poles pushing the mines out of the way for 2.5, 3 days. The West German harbors were mine shut, so they couldn't go to West Germany, so the ship took us to Copenhagen. We were the enemies of the Danes, so they put us behind our wire. Just before that, though, my baby sister Elka, she was other 1,000 babies, all died of starvation. Because the mothers had no food, they could not feed their babies. She was born to get us out of the hands of the communists. She accomplished her mission in life in 1 year. Let me ask you, you're 30, 40, 50, 60, 18, if you would die today, have you accomplished the mission you were born for in this life? So there she was. There were 4 in the casket like this, in the box of babies, buried under the banner of the swastika. We got into this camp, got into boxcars, and the sliding doors were shut, we were moving somewhere, who knows where, and after so many hours, sliding doors of the boxcars opened up. We saw soldiers with machine guns, German shepherd dogs, barbed wire, and that was a new home. 2 years behind barbed wire in a camp, 36,000 people. 17 people in one room. And that was a good experience. We learn best by affliction. When we have it easy, we don't learn very well. But when we are being afflicted, our ears are open, we begin to think, what am I here for? Where did I come from? Where do I go? So I thank the Lord, I did not waste my childhood with stupid things. I did not waste my youth doing foolish things. I was focused and stayed focused all the way through because of the afflictions. So here we were, 17 people on bunk beds, just a little bit of straw, which was flat for 2 days. And of course we had no pillows, no hot water, and all this stuff that goes with it, bed bugs and mice and lice and all that stuff. And here my mother, a young widow, my mother taught us, don't think about what you don't have. Think about what you do have. Oh, okay. Oh, what do we have? Okay. You have feet by which to walk, hands by which to handle. Think about not having hands. Whoa! Eyes by which to see. Think about having no eyes. Ears by which to hear. And a working brain. What is your problem? You don't have a problem. My mother was never negative. Never. One time in her whole life, never negative. When everybody else was negative, she was positive. She stood out all the time. Great woman. And she was tough on us. It was good for us. She did not recognize or know. She prepared me to become a follower of Jesus. She would not allow us to have any choices. As long as I was with her, she never gave me a choice about anything. You want this, you want that, never. She made all choices. What a wonderful way to be raised. When I met Jesus, he didn't give me any choices. It's either his way or you're out. I didn't have any struggle. When Jesus says, go here, do that, do this or that, leave this job, no problem. I'm used to that. I'm away, no struggle. Wow. My mother, now you don't like this, but anyhow, tell you a story. She never told me I love you. after a while. My mother would not allow excuses, none whatsoever. And so we were trained, we were in this camp, we were learning, we were molded, we were formed, we were shaped. Then the first year of the camp, we boys carved chess figures out of trees. And I played chess 6 days a week. The second year, the parents got together, 36,000 people, we got 36,000 brains. Why in the world don't we have school here? We're wasting our kids. So we started elementary school, high school, university, without textbooks, without notebooks, without pencils, just barracks. We had enough people die of starvation, empty barracks, a teacher, piece of chalkboard, and that's it. That's the way we are. I think we don't need as much money for education as you think you need. The first thing I had to learn in school, the very first thing was I had to learn the great German hymn, Ein feste Burg ist unser Gott, ein gute Wehr und Waffen. A mighty fortress is our God, a bulwark never failing. And I lay on the top bunk of my bed there, and I said to myself, I was 11 years old now, a mighty fortress is our God. Where's God? Who is God? I was like a little boy Samuel, who heard a voice but didn't know who it was. After 2 years, we got out of the camp and back to Hamburg, my beloved city. You see, before the bombings, after the bombings, everything was gone. 78% of the city was flat, just rubble. Women, children, old men buried. So, where do you go? Where do you live? Where are the apartments? Where are the houses to live in? Zero. Back to the barracks. Back to the barracks. So we lived in the barrack in the middle of winter, very cold winter. Broken glass, broken window, no heat. It was so cold that for most of the time, for about a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, we spent 23 hours a day on the bunk beds, just shaking and shivering. Get up 1 hour a day to clean ourselves up, go back to bed. Here my mother had the audacity to say, children, don't we have it good? Wow. I hope we learned something here. We said, tell us about it. Well, it's very obvious. For the first time in 2 years, we're not 17 people in one room. We had our own private room as a family. Hallelujah. I didn't have the word, but she always saw the positive. So then, after a little while of this and that, 13 years of age, I took my whole bicycle out of the rubble of Hamburg into the forest to get away from the destruction. So I went into a forest. I had no tent. I had no blanket. I covered myself with pine branches for the night. In the morning, the ants were crawling up my legs, woke me up. And nightingales sang a beautiful song. And as the golden beams of the sun came through the trees, I heard a voice speak to me in perfect German. Ich liebe dich. Ich liebe dich. Ich bin Liebe. Whoa! I love you. I love you. I am love. Woo! Never read the Bible. Know nothing about Christianity. Little bundle of 13 years of age, lying on the forest floor. I had a God
watching over me all the time. I've been to many schools, high schools, churches, different places speaking, and I tell people, that's what God told me. He saw me under the pine branches. He sees you crying in your pillow at night because you just went through a divorce or whatever you went through. He says to you, I love you. I love you. I'm love, that's the beginning point. 3 years later, I was my last year in high school. We finished high school at 16, started 12. So we started working at 16. I was in an all-boys high school. That's when you really learn. The shyest boy in school sat in the back corner where the tall guy sat. And the teacher presented Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. And throughout the whole process, my head said, no. No, this is an insult to my intelligence. I didn't come from a ape or my grandparents didn't come out of the swamp millions of years ago. And then in my heart, this little voice in my heart that talked to me before, I was listening to the inner voice, always listening to the inner voice. It says in John chapter 1 that of Jesus, he is a light that lightens every man that comes into the world. Every man has a light inside of him. He's born with it. I read by the light all the time. The little light says, no, that's not where you came from. So the shyest boy in an all-boys high school have never said a word. And he said at the end of the class, the presentation of Darwin, he said, is there anybody in class who would like to dispute the Darwinian theory? I came up like a rocket. Ich muss morgen dagegen sprechen! I must speak against this tomorrow. Just came out of me like that. After 4 years of silence, I exploded! And the teacher almost fell backwards. You have the whole science hour tomorrow. And I was petrified. Whoa, I didn't expect that. I wasn't ready for that. And the class was electrified. Finally, after 4 years, Schultze is going to say something. What are you going to say? And Andy read the Bible. I went home and asked my mother, do you have the Bible? She had, who wrote Martin Luther's Bible, 1906 edition, the old German script. I was going to be a scientist. Well, you look at the last book and, last published stuff for science and Revelations. Whoa. First thing I read about horses being out to black with the bridle, all this. Forget it. I said, God, you got me into this, you're going to have to get me through this. Anyhow, I plan to be embarrassed, get done with it for all my life. Forget it. So, went to bed, had a good night's sleep, went to class the next day. And they all looked at me, And I looked at them forever, it seemed forever. And finally I said, es kann nicht sein, es muss einen Gott geben, es muss einen Gott geben. It cannot be, there must be a God. There must be a God! Nothing more came to my mind. I made my way back to my bench seat in the corner, and the glory of God came all over me. I didn't have more glory in my vocabulary. The glory of God came all over me. I wasn't a Christian. Wow! And God spake to me in the heart. See, I was getting ready to graduate, but I wasn't ready. I said, listen, I'm not ready to graduate, get a job, get married, have kids, get a house, and die. I don't know where I came from. I don't know what I'm here for. I don't know where I'm going when I die. I don't have an education. I'm no smarter than a frog who ready to jump on his nice lily pad, doesn't know where he's going after that. you don't have the answers to that, you don't have an education, relatively speaking. So God spake to me in the glory. He said, I will give you the answers to the questions of origin, purpose, and destiny. Wow, I was thrilled. I was thrilled. And I didn't realize at the time that would be my life's mission. I'm a full-time writer. My writing school in 11 languages all over the world. Origin, purpose, destiny. So I went home. I said, Mother, give me the Bible. I began to read the Bible every day, pray every day. You know, I got nothing out of the Bible, nothing. I got nothing out of the Bible for 6 months. Nothing. I didn't give up. I was focused. I wouldn't give up. It says in Jeremiah, if you seek him with all your heart, you will find him. Maybe a while. You know, we try something, go to the altar 5 minutes, try to get something and change your life, and it didn't work, we forget it. Don't forget it, no. You seek him with all your heart, that means you leave everything beside and make that the main course, and you'll find what you're looking for and the things of the kingdom. So after 6 months, I came to a scripture, asking you shall receive, seeking you shall find, knock it shall be opened. That's me! That's me! If that's not true, the whole thing is a farce. And then, of all places, I found another verse that made sense in the Revelation. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and have supper with him, have fellowship with him, and he with me. I said, I hear the knock on my door, the heart of my door. Jesus wants to come into my life. So a few weeks later, I went to England, visiting my Jewish grandfather. He escaped the Holocaust. The last day there, I got a personal invitation to come to a Christian Bible conference center in Northern England. And I got there, and there were all these young people from Europe in these conference halls. And two German young men tried to get me saved. So they didn't know how to do it. They took me to the evangelist, Major Ian Thomas. We knelt together on his old, comfy English couch. And asked Jesus to come to my heart. And he did. So I had to leave the next day to make it to school, back to Germany. In Germany, you don't fool around with schools. Listen, to get into high school, you have to be the top 1/3 in elementary school. You go through 6 days of all written examinations to get into high school. And bottom 1/3 is dropped out in 4 years. No playing around. And so I had to go back. And on the way back, I ended up in London. I was stranded in London because of a big storm. It was a big storm in the British Channel. I had to spend the night there. I had no money. I looked ragged. Same clothing was too tight. I'd grown and I always looked terrible. And I didn't know where to spend the night. So here comes a bunch of young people from Bavaria, southern Germany, with their leather pants and their, all that stuff they have. They were not bound. They didn't know what war was down there. And the Lord told me, join them, get in the middle of them. And here were the only little guys there, nicely dressed. And I was a bunch of rags. I got in the middle of them like a telephone pole. I stayed in the middle of them. And they're underground, and now we're with them underground on a group pass. We were underground in the trains, all over London. Finally, they went up back to the ground on the street. Finally, I was in front of I was in a house, big old house, and in front of a room night there. The next day, I had no money to go back to the station. I didn't know where I was, nothing. I was translated. Kaboom! I was in front of the main station train going to the British town. I got in the boat. It was really stormy. I couldn't go down because I'm a third-class passenger. So I was on deck. The ship was going just, it's crazy. I had an empty stomach. I wish I could bring something up to feel better. Her stomach was attached, everything attached. So. And as the Black Sea came at me, and water was spraying at me, all of a sudden the devil talked to me. All of a sudden I knew there was a devil. And the devil said, Schultze, how do you like being a Christian? And I said, you old devil! If I would go to hell, I would talk of Jesus till you spit me out. There I signed my marriage contract with Jesus. For better or for worse, I would follow Jesus. That was 60-some years ago. By God's grace, I kept up my end. Got back to Germany, and I was told I needed to witness. I was a shy boy. I could hardly say anything. I need to witness for Jesus. They overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. We need a witness for Jesus. So I witnessed to my mother. She gave me a cold shoulder. There's me in the Boy Scouts. And then I witnessed to my scoutmaster. And Dr. Bertner, when I told him Jesus has come to my heart, he looked at me and he said, blasphemy, blasphemy. You know, I have perfect peace. Jesus spake to me. He said, he just doesn't know what's going on, that's all. Don't worry about it. You know, he's a Lutheran, one of those Lutherans. You know, a holy God does not live in sinful man. He does it in secret. But Jesus took the sin out of my life and he moved in. A few weeks later, all the big shots, the old men, Boy Scout leaders in Germany, about 15 of them, had me join them around a big conference table, 16 years old. And they asked me for my scouting license. And they took it and said, you will never see it again. I was excommunicated by the Christian Boy Scout movement of Germany because I said, Jesus is coming to my heart. Then me and another young man, we together started an underground Christian Boy Scout movement. And they called it Dietrich Bonhoeffer. So I want to end here. I have a book out there, an autobiography. I gave you 1/2 of what I normally like to do. The first half you heard, how to find God. Okay? My second half is when I was in how I learned to walk with God. How I learned to walk with God. For 19 years after I was saved, I read the Bible, I led a few people to Jesus Christ. I did not know